Okay, I guess. Does that mean we officially start now?
If you guys want to wait a couple seconds, you can, but the recording has started, so you guys can feel free to present whenever.
Okay. So I'll just start now then. So let me get my slides here. Okay. So hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming to spend the next hour with us at our 2022 fall virtual program entitled Going Where No Library Has Gone Before, building a research library at a biocultural reserve in the Yucatan. This program was developed by the Digital Scholarship Section's Professional Development Committee in collaboration with both the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee and the Outreach Committee. Thank you to our presenters today, ACRL staff, and the DSS committee members for their coordinated effort. In the spirit of equity, diversity, and inclusion in the DSS community and beyond, I will read a brief statement. Please take a moment and review the guidelines on the upcoming slide. We, the DSS community, agree to frame interactions in DSS activities with these guidelines in mind. We recognize that whenever we engage as a community, we will all make mistakes that may unintentionally harm individuals or groups. But we agree to take responsibility for the results of our words and actions. We expect that all DSS meetings will begin with a brief review of these agreements so they may become standard for activities in the sections. So please take a minute to look over the guidelines. Once you've had that moment, I will introduce our panelists. So Hannah Rutledge is the director of the Biotech Commons at the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. Hannah's career includes 15 years of experience in leadership across hospital, corporate, and academic library environments. She joined Penn in June of 2020, coming from Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, where she was head of clinical informationist services in the Woodruff Health Services Center Library. In 2016, her dissertation was identified as one of the 10 quote, most notable by ALA. She is an active member of the Medical Library Association, the Association of Academic Health Sciences Libraries, the Association of College and Research Libraries, and the Ivy Plus Libraries Confederation. She holds a PhD in Information Science and an MLIS from the University of North Texas, and a BA in Anthropology from Millsaps College. Andrea Nunez has been a photographer specializing in cultural heritage photography for over 20 years. She has experience working in numerous museum and library settings, including the Smithsonian's National Museum of American Indian, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and Yale University Art Gallery. For the past 7 years, she has photographed rare books and manuscripts for the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. And Chris Lippa is the digitization specialist at the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. After working in theater production most of his life, he's been working in special collections, digitization, and technical support for 15 years. He's currently working on new ways to bring cultural records to life using new technologies and loving every minute of it. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my slides and take it away, Hannah.
Right, thank you very much. I am going to share my screen and make sure you can see the actual presentation. Great. So, so thank you for your time and attention today, and thank you for that great introduction. I'm going to basically give you a little background about the library we're building in the Yucatan Peninsula, and then I'm going to hand it over to Andrea and Chris to talk about the really exciting digital pieces of it. And this goes back to, I guess, 20 years ago when I was an undergrad student at Millsaps College in Jackson, Mississippi. I was an anthropology major, and I spent a summer digging at a Maya archaeological site with Dr. George Bay. Fast forward to summer of 2021, Dr. Bay contacted me over Facebook and said, "Hey, you're a librarian, right?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "Do you want to build us a library in the Yucatan?" And that's all he had to say. I said, yes, we'll figure out all the details, but yes. And so today I'm going to introduce, kind of set the stage for that library, and then we'll start dreaming from there. So as we were introduced, Chris and Andrea and I are here with you today. And I wanted to put a face to Dr. George Bay, who is the reason why we're here. He brought me on it, and then Andrea and Chris visited the Biotech Commons here at Penn, which was formerly the Biomedical Library. We underwent a renovation, and they came over to see our digital fabrication lab. And I think I mentioned it to them, and then the brainstorming just started happening. And so the three of us, we are volunteers on this project. They have graciously gone along with me on this fun and wild ride, and we're excited to share with you today our ideas. So let's go to Mexico. So Caxiolquehuic is the name of the Biocultural Reserve, which houses the archaeological site as well. And it is in the Yucatan of Mexico, just south of Merida. So you fly into Merida, and it's about a 90-minute drive to a small village called Oshkootskab. And so just to put you geographically there, Caxiolquehuic involves three main locations. We have Casa Millsaps, which is a boutique hotel of sorts in Merida, right near shopping and restaurants, and the business school at Millsaps College has a lot of classes there, and it's open for faculty meetings and things like that. The MPARC, the Millsaps Pook Archaeological Research Center, is at Oshkootskab, and that's where the library is located. And then Quehuic is the archaeological site itself. And I will give you a quick photographic tour of those last two parts of it. So Quehuic is the Biocultural Reserve, 4,500 acres. It houses on the four pictures on your left, that's the archaeological site. They are currently excavating the throne room of an ancient Mayan site. And but Caxiolquehuic is not only the archaeological site, it also has a jaguar conservation program, a nature conservation program. They've received grants to grow plants and trees that are native to the area, and then replant them throughout that surrounding area. And so there's a lot of different work going on. It's very interdisciplinary. And the archaeological site itself, Dr. Bay and his colleagues have been digging there for 22 years. And so it's not necessarily a new site. There is a National Geographic documentary about the site and how the findings there are changing our understanding of the ancient Maya. And I can put the link to that full documentary in the chat later today. But it's a very, very interesting and inspiring setting, and a lot of different research going on. So the Millsaps Pook Archaeological Research Center is located in Oshkootskab, and I think of it kind of as the headquarters for a lot of the researchers, the faculty, and the students that come down and dig at the site or do other research along the property. The two pictures there on the far left, that's the hut I stayed in, if you want to call it a hut. I went down this summer for the library dedication and organization, and you sleep in hammocks. It's fantastic. You can rock yourself to sleep. The top center picture there is of the kitchen that they have. They employ a lot of locals in maintaining the facilities and being involved in some of the analysis and the work that goes on. And 3 of those local women cook meals 3 times a day for anyone who is staying there at MPark. And it's all fresh ingredients, local recipes, and it's the best food I've had in my life. And there in the bottom right, you can see part of the lab that they have there at MPark. And so here they are looking at pottery shards. They have a large analysis around that, and you can see it is stacked with boxes of archives and things. It's very, very nice setting. And so focusing on the library here today, when Dr. Bay and I were first talking about what it would mean to have a library in the Yucatan at MPark specifically, but what it would be like to serve all those different research priorities and agendas that are happening at Kashiilkiwik. And what really stuck with me is Dr. Bay saying, I know how to dig holes in the ground, but I know nothing about building libraries. And as you can see in the floor plan here, they had really only planned for kind of what you may call a basic physical library. A library with books on bookshelves and display cases to showcase some of the artifacts found at the site, and tables and possibly computers and internet access, but they hadn't thought beyond that. And so here is the physical library that we have built. As I mentioned, it was dedicated July 13th of this year. It is the Donna Ruth Else Roberts Library, named after Donna Ruth Else Roberts, who is photographed there, top middle picture in the blue shirt. She is a longtime donor to Millsaps College and a retired research librarian herself. And I had the honor of meeting her, and she told me, she said, Hannah, I wanted a bigger library. She said, I wanted a bigger library on this site because I understand the importance of libraries supporting research. And so she's a big supporter, which we don't always find, but we're very thankful to have her on this project. And so the physical library, the collections that we have currently, you can see the picture there on the top left. They were donated by renowned Maya scholars from all over the world. This first, as you can see the boxes, this first round of donations came from a few different ones in the US specifically, and they had inherited other libraries from other Maya scholars who are really well known. So it was exciting for me to spend 2 days before the dedication kind of sifting through all of that and organizing it, and also keeping in mind preservation and what that will look like. There, the bottom center picture, the gentleman with the bookshelves, that is Tito. He and his team built all of the bookshelves and display cases with local materials. And he was very, very shy to take his picture. I had to persuade him. And his team wanted nothing to do with it, but they are really gorgeous shelves and cases. And then on the far right there, you can see some interior shots from right before the dedication. There is an AC unit, or 2 of them, I guess, but it only is on when the library is occupied. And so since the site has not been occupied and the AC has not been on, we're already dealing with mold issues. So why a research library in the Yucatan? I have kind of, in my own way of understanding the possibilities, I've broken it down into 3 areas. The physical library itself, kind of the basic library materials, as well as a space for events to connect researchers while they're studying or conducting research at the site, and also a community space. It is in the village of Oshkosh-Cobb, where a majority of the citizens are well below the poverty level. And so how can we open this space up to them and make it a meaningful and impactful space for them as well? Today, we're going to talk about the digital. I'm going to let Andrea take off on that in just a little bit. But some of my initial thoughts around that is an institutional repository. So Kashiel-Kiwik can have some kind of idea of an impact that they are having on research field in general. Digital archives, AR, VR, and cultural heritage informatics. Through this project, I'm learning more and more about cultural heritage informatics. And then, as I mentioned, the community, and you can't really see it, but that little photo is the backdoor neighbor to the library. It's a horse. And so he and I talked a lot while I was down there. But it shows you just kind of the basic living conditions in that area. And so, you know, how can, like I said, how can we use the library for the benefit of the community? And then also to continue to engage those students and faculty who come through the facilities, for alumni like myself who worked there as a student but have moved on with my life. How can we keep them connected to Kashiel-Kiwik? And lastly, but certainly not least, is librarianship. This is a very unique setting for libraries. And so how can we use it to train the next generation of librarians, to not only locals in that area, but also library students? Or so I think there's a lot of possibility. And I certainly want to mention one more thing, and that all of these facilities at Kashiel-Kiwik, though they are owned by Millsaps College, they're not restricted to Millsaps College. So they're open to all faculty and students and visitors from anywhere. We've had many universities come down and bring their own curriculum, own classes down and conduct at the site. So, so it is open for use by everyone. So the foundation, I guess, to my thinking about this library are three components that were described to me in defining cultural heritage informatics. And I think it translates very well to the library here, and that's preservation, access, and advocacy. And so that's kind of what we're hoping. That I guess that's where my thinking was when I first started talking to Andrea and Chris about all of this. And with that, I will say one last thing, that the following information contains ideas that have not yet happened. So all of these ideas that Andrea and Chris are going to walk you through, that we haven't actually done any of them. So it's very much kind of brainstorming, experimenting. And I will say Dr. Bay and everyone at Kashiel-Kiwik are very excited about these possibilities. It's just a matter of making them happen. And so for today's purposes, please proceed with kind and open minds. And please let us know if you have any other thoughts, ideas, suggestions. And Andrea, with that, I'm going to stop sharing and let you take it over.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. That was a great presentation. And you know, Hannah first started speaking to Chris and I about her project maybe a few months ago over the summer, and it was wonderful. It was to hear how excited she was about the project and her passion for this project, and it really got Chris and I also excited about it. So, you know, when Hannah came to us, she was sort of curious about ideas that we might have about digital technology that could be incorporated into Kashiel-Kiwik. So we started to brainstorm, and we first started to look at, okay, what are the components of Kesselquick? So of course, the library, the archaeological site, and the research and educational center. And we started to just discuss what kind of digital needs they might have, but also what are the realities that they're currently facing. So we sort of broke down, well, what kind of collection objects are there? So in the library items, we talked about how there's printed books, rare books, manuscripts, and archives. There's also archaeological items that we were thinking that if there was some sort of digital asset management system that was established, perhaps it could become the under the auspice of the library to organize that data as well. So we were thinking about the archaeological items that are in the collection. So that would be lithics, ceramics, jade, amongst other types of materials. And there's also a number of current digital media that could potentially need to be organized in some sort of digital asset management system. So there's digital media, including 2D images, 3D images, and LiDAR scans, which are a type of 3D imaging that's being done, actually like aerial views of the Kesselquick area. It's very exciting, and it's something that could potentially need to be archived, though, because I think currently it's being archived by the individual that's creating them. So the current challenges that come along with having a wonderful library and archaeological site in the jungle is preservation, access, and engagement. So for preservation, there's some challenges, such as environmental conditions. There's limited cataloging that's been done so far, and it's in a remote location. So a solution that we were talking about could be, of course, digital imaging of objects, such as library books or the objects we talked about in the collection, to provide digital preservation of the objects in case of object damage or loss due to environmental conditions, fire or anything that could possibly cause loss of the object. It also helps with identification purposes, internally and externally. And of course, creating a digital asset management system or purchasing one to organize all that data would be vital. So also access is a challenge, because the only way to access this information currently is to actually go down there and see the stuff in person. So again, an online digital repository would allow for download and remote research capabilities. It would also make the collection more accessible to students and researchers globally. And finally, engagement. Like I said before, engagement is also limited to only on-site activities. So having an online database of digital collection objects, library books, and archives would be a great solution to increase engagement. Another way to increase engagement would be to expand upon the website, possibly highlighting specific types of the collection. It would also allow for international collaboration. And it would also be a place where maybe 3D, AR, and VR interpretive storytelling could be displayed. So after many discussions all together on our lunchtime talks, we finally kind of boiled it down to what the digital dreams for the future of Kesselquick. So it definitely would be an online digital repository of collection objects, library books, archives, and born digital material. Create a DAM system, a digital asset management system, and then some kind of interactive 3D media. And we also thought this would be a great way to get collaboration from many different schools and professionals that could be interested in helping on this project. And it could range from museum professionals to librarian professionals, people who are interested in digital asset management, and then also training of locals and students to help facilitate this work. Dr. Bay talked about how there's a number of locals who have transitioned into working there under hired under certain to do certain jobs, but then have progressed and learned even more skills. And so it's definitely something that's already been established there of employing locals to do some of the work. Now, I just wanted to go over really quickly, what do I mean when I say digitization? So I'm primarily talking about photography. So this is just an example of what I mean. This is a picture of me photographing a medieval manuscript, but many of the books that are in Hannah's collection would be digitized the same way. Usually the way books are photographed is you can photograph them recto verso. So all the pages are photographed, the covers, the spines, all of it is completely photographed, and you save all that data into a digital repository. Actually, let me go back real quick. So this camera itself is more of a high-end medium format camera, very high resolution. That's for projects that maybe have like a larger budget, but that doesn't mean that you can't do these kind of things perhaps on a smaller budget. So I just wanted to show this example. This is me on location, and you can see that there's a tripod that simply has been converted into a rudimentary copy stand. So it's definitely something that can be hauled into the jungle and set up a copy stand something similar to this. This is an example of some photography equipment that could be used to do some sort of digitization project. You have lights, some kind of backdrop. This is a stable backdrop, but you can definitely just use a roll of a sheet of paper. This is a medium format camera, but you can definitely use a less expensive mirrorless camera. The mirrorless cameras that are coming out now are very high in resolution. And these are just some of the tools that would be used, such as a scale, a color chart, and then snakes and spatulas to hold the book down and turn pages carefully. But the color chart and scale just ensures that future researchers can verify the colors and the size of the book within the photograph. And then some kind of computer software and computer equipment would need to be used. The one I currently use is Capture One, which goes with the medium format camera I use. But really, even if you used a less expensive mirrorless camera, most of them all come with proprietary software to deal with raw files, such as like Canon, Nikon, Fuji. They all have software you can use. And the detail that you can get from these images is incredible. You can have images up to 300 to 600 DPI, and you can really zoom in. So if you have text or details on an object that you really want to zoom into, it's completely feasible. So after all of that, understanding digitization and our dreams for the future, we then started talking about, well, what do we focus on first? So as Hannah mentioned, some of the books have some mold issues. So we were thinking that those would be the objects that would be absolutely critical to digitize first. So the rare books, the paper archive materials such as journals, archaeological dig notes, those seem to be the most at risk. So we thought that that would be a great starting point if we would get the chance to do this. And then in a long-term sort of view, we thought that we could, again, start with the archive materials and rare books, and then move on to digitizing library books that haven't been digitized yet. Like if they already are posted in sites such as like HathiTrust or some other international repository, we might not digitize those. But if they're unique, have signatures or something, or first edition or something significant about the book, we would definitely also photograph that. Dr. Millsaps also was interested in having best of collection types. So it'd be like the best of the, or the most significant maybe of the jade collection or the objects in the lithics collection. It would be wonderful to expand that to have a full digitization of the entire archaeological collection in the future as well. And then finally, to do some exciting 3D imaging would be really exciting. So speaking of 3D imaging, many cultural heritage institutions are adopting 3D imaging, and that would include 3D scanning and photogrammetry. So there are certain objects that are best for doing this kind of 3D imaging. So that would be objects that have unique markings, are solid structures, have a sort of matte finish, and unique geometry so that the software can kind of latch onto those marker details. Objects that are not great or difficult to do 3D imaging would be objects that are made out of glass, are transparent, or things that are metallic or shiny, also things that are sort of wispy like feathers, or then objects that have no unique markings at all because it's difficult for the software to latch on or identify the structure of the object. So there's some, for 3D scanning, there's some Artex scanners that I've used personally. The Leo, the Spider, and the Eva, each are best used for different sized material. The one that I found best for books was the Eva on the right side. This is an example of me digitizing a particular book with the Eva. You can see it's connected to the computer. And on the left are some sort of rudimentary preliminary renderings, but the final rendering ends up like this. You get a 3D image that you can spin around and look at and zoom into. The process was relatively fast to do it. It took about a day to do that. The downside is it's more on the expensive side for that particular type of hardware. The process that I like the best is photogrammetry. You put an object on a turntable. This book, keep your eye on this book because Chris is going to talk about it in a few minutes. But with this process, I put the turntable in a little white tent and took many, many, many photographs of it, probably over 200 photographs of each side. And then I put it into a software, and each one of these blue rectangles represents a photograph. And the software I use is called Agisoft Metashape. And this software does a great job of compiling the images together, and it basically makes two sides, and then I merge those two sides together to get a final 3D rendering. And then this is the output of those images. So again, you get a 3D object that you can spin around and zoom into. And I really like this process because you get much better detail. It also is a great price because it utilizes many of the same photo equipment that many photo studios already have within cultural heritage institutions. It's just, you can use a DSLR camera or a mirrorless camera and some studio lights that you have and potentially a white tent. The only downside is it's time consuming. So this probably took a couple days for me to create. This is another example of a photogrammetry image that I did, and I just wanted to show it because it's very similar to some of the objects that is at Cashel Quick. And a great way for cultural heritage institutions to show these 3D images is through a website called Sketchfab. Many museums are already exhibiting their 3D images in this fashion. It's a site that's either free or at a discounted rate. And you can load your 3D images up there. You can change the top to be branded for your logo. So Cashel Quick, we can put our logo on it. It would be really great. And it's hosted on the web. So it's not like it's something that you have to figure out how to change your website. And, you know, with all the 2D and 3D imaging that has been done, there's some great possibilities for augmented reality and virtual reality, which Chris is now going to talk about.
Hi, I think I'm sharing my screen now. And I'm putting it in presentation mode, and I need to go back to my first slide. Okay, here's my first slide. So I'm so excited about what's going on here. And thank you, Hannah and Andrea, great presentations. My strategy is I just start talking. I'm not going to be as linear as my previous two colleagues, but because I'm just so excited about this. This library is so far away. We can't all go get a ticket right now. We can't go there. I mean, we can go there, but how do we connect with this? How do we connect with this? Enhanced connections with collections is something that I've been chasing for a long time. I come from work in theater where what we did was we would take a story, when we bring it out and we put it on a stage and share it with a group of people. And this is the kind of, this is what I'm chasing with our new technology. Now, when I started 15 years ago, all right, well, let's find out where are we? Let's find our place in the timeline of technology and libraries here. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. Imagine how it blew people's minds, the printing press. It really changed things. I'm not just, exaggerating or being sarcastic, but it really did. We take it for granted now, but several hundred years later, let's come to this microfilm thing that happened kind of in the 30s and the 40s, and that also blew people's minds. I found articles where they say you can just throw all your books away because now we're going to have microfilm, and we're going to have these special little microfilm viewers you can take home. And by the way, also some of the things they did was just reprint it in books. And that picture of the book and the original, I actually was asked to digitize that reprint of the microfilm printing of the original book. So I just went up to Special Collections. I was like, can we just do the original book? Anyway, so now here, this picture on the right is more about modern digitization. And we've really gone through that. We're at a real turning point with that. We've gotten a lot of stuff done, but technology is relentless, and we have another wave coming. But what I want to note when we look at these three technological developments is we're all talking. Every one of these is still in 2 dimensions. Even when we get to digitization, that layer of pixels is still in 2 dimensions. We're still dealing with that flat world, all right, so now I made this picture during the pandemic when I had some free time, where we talk about the differences. I want to be sure we're kind of have an understanding of augmented reality and virtual reality. Augmented reality is where we bring the object into our world that we're in now, that we're already physically inhabiting. The object is a visitor in our world. With virtual reality, we put on the goggles, we put on the headsets, and we immerse ourselves in another world. And that's really cool, and that has its uses. And it's going to develop into a place, right now it's really young, but a lot of people that I talk to, we're on the same page about augmented reality. It's more simpler, and it's more of a shared experience. So I've been developing ways we can interact with the collections and what the collections are saying using augmented reality. So here we have, there are so many possibilities. I'm going to bring it into these 2 specific areas that I've been playing with. One is direct research, where we're just doing this kind of hard studying, and we really want to in our learning place. We can enhance websites with this. We can use it to translate languages to many different languages. And we can also take this clay that is our new technology now and actually instead of trying to figure out what we can use it for, just decide what we want to use it for and shape it that way. Another larger means we can use this technology, and I'm going to be showing some examples in a minute, is an experiential means. It's immersive. We're interactive with it, and remember, experience is the best teacher. With that phrase, it gives you the test before it teaches you the lesson, unfortunately. So, but none of this stuff we need to think of as a replacement. I think that some people, are worried that we're trying to replace a book. We're not. This is a descriptive aid. It's a sketch. This is ways to help teaching. It's not meant to replace teaching. So here's the thing that I've been messing with. I'll get this video going. So the first thing we see here is a web page. This is our UPenn web page for manuscripts. There's a manuscript LJS 419. Now we've seen this a few slides ago. Andrea has digitized this book, and now I've put it in a digital space between the iPad screen and the viewing screen. We're going to pull back out in a second. You can see that. So what I want is this object to exist in that area, kind of like right above the keyboard. Here we can see it again. It's anchored in that image that's on the web page there. So anywhere we see that image, we can have this experience. Now it's on an iPad. We can do glasses in another 5 or 6 years. Different interactions we can also apply to this. It just doesn't have to spin, and I can show you those in a few minutes. Let's go to the next slide where I'll show it to you from the iPad's point of view. This is what you're seeing through the viewer. So this can really show you how you can see the dimension. What she just did an excellent job digitizing into 3D space this book. That it doesn't have clean edges. It's raggedy. It's got, so we can really see that and we can interact with it. One of the great things here is now physically we can see all sides of this book, but if it's in danger, if it's fragile, we don't have to put it at risk again. And all of us, everybody in this meeting right now could be having that book floating right above our keyboard. So we're there, we have the technology, and it's developing and it's changing. Viewing hardware is going to change over time. Right now, I'm running all over the library with an iPad. I look crazy pointing it at nothing. But soon we're going to be wearing these really weird glasses that are going to have Apple logos on them. And who knows? Or Google, who knows? So our ability to interact with this stuff is going to change. It's going to smooth out. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. Okay, so that was our way of directly working with the objects, kind of collaboratively. But now here is the experiential aspect. Here is this is a digital chuppah, a Jewish wedding tent that I built. Was inspired by, again, this is a sketch. I really want to kind of improve the texture of the tent and everything. Andrea had digitized a collection of ketubas, which are Jewish wedding documents. And so what I did was I put this on a 3D block. So now it's an object. It's kind of hard to have a 2D object floating around in that space. So I mounted it on something. I put metadata about the object on the other side. So we could take that thing and we could move that, put that in other situations. On the left there, that question mark, now I'm not streaming audio because I didn't want to risk it. We could tap on that and hear an audio recording of what is said. There are so many other things we could put on that table or in that area. So this is a sketch. We can recreate what was on the archaeological site in the same way and put it on site. Recently, I saw some interesting things that they're doing where they're recreating ruins. They're using drones and lighting, and they're sort of filling out the rest of the building that used to be there. This technology and our ability to kind of experience things is it's on its way. And certainly, I think that maybe the pandemic has sort of pushed that more forward. Quick is a great candidate for this because we can't get there. You see those objects that are in that case right there in the middle of this photo, we can get them and we can bring them to us almost in our hands, in our digital hands. We can interact with them and we can all share, be looking at the same thing. And that's just great. I mean, that's just the start. What then can we do with those objects once we have them and we know that maybe we can do something to them and we're not damaging them? If we wanted to put notes on them, if we wanted to see what a different color was, what if it was made from a different material? What if it was paired with a certain thing? We can do all these things with these 3D objects. And it's not, you know, again, starting with when I started with digitization, you know, there were curators who would put their hands on their hips and he'd say, but this isn't the manuscript. And no, it's not. That manuscript is just the gold leaf. You know, Andrea and I photographed a bunch of gold leaf. We have a real hard time recreating that. So it's not meant to be a replacement. It's meant to be an experience. So I would like to say thank you to Hannah, Andrea, and ACRL, and hand it off to whoever wants to follow. Thank you. I'm going to stop share. Stop share. There we go.
All right, thank you so much. And now we're open for Q&A. Rachel, I see that you already have a question there. Thank you for your interest. And you ask, is there any need for translation? I'm sure there is. The physical library books the physical books that we have in the library, they are a mix of English, Spanish, and Yucatec. And so I'm sure there will be. We haven't gotten to that level of detail, but I would love to connect with you and talk more about that and hear your ideas for how that.
Yeah, if anybody else has any other questions as well, feel free to put them in the chat or, you know, use your raised hand function. One question I had in mind was, I know a couple have mentioned the possibilities of accessing the materials that are down there already, but I wanted to hear the experience of managing a site that is remote, that is distant from you, in both like physicality wise, where it's like, how do you send staff to manage? Like what happens when, you know, someone not from the library is there? Like, what does that look like?
That's a good question. I don't know the full answer to that because it was just dedicated / opened in July. And I will say that it's not a library in the traditional sense that access is restricted to librarians or anything like that. It is a part of that small archaeological research center in Park. And so the folks who work there, the folks who stay there and do research there, the idea is that the library will be open to them. We do keep it locked. You may have seen in the pictures that there are bars on the window. That's a common thing to have on windows down there, just because we do have some rare books. The physical collection ranges in dates from 1841 up into 2020. You saw it's relatively small collection at this time. Since I took those pictures in July, we have installed more bookshelves as we are fielding more interest for donations. I think right now the two biggest challenges that we have faced are shipping the books down there. Getting through customs is a very expensive task, and logistically getting them to Oshkosh is challenging as well. And the second one being the mold issue. I think there's that's been a relatively recent development, and we have a couple of colleagues who live full-time down in that area. They are local to the area and live down there, and so they've installed some humidifiers. Again, because Chris and Andrea and I are all volunteers on this, it's been very much learning on our feet, especially from my perspective. And so dealing with the mold, I contacted a couple of colleagues here at Penn saying, hey, do you know anything about mold? And they were like, oh yeah, you do X, Y, and Z. Here's some websites. And so I'm spoiled in the fact that I'm surrounded by so much expertise, and Chris and Andrea are case in point examples of that. So I think, to long answer to your question, is we're still figuring it out. The field season is most popular, obviously, in the summer, but it is open year round. Technically, they have locals there doing maintenance year round. We do have some universities who come give classes in the spring, especially. So we want to make it available to them, and we're still figuring out kind of what that means exactly for the library.
Rachel, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I was going to mention the mold. I was like, that has got to be a top priority because it is so humid down there. And if this has just happened in a matter of a couple of months, it's not going to slow down. So I'm glad you're already addressing that. But one of the things that was on my mind was that, and I'm definitely not any kind of expert. I have very little knowledge about modern Indigenous populations or First Nations populations in the Yucatan, but I think just what an incredible opportunity to blend, you know, the Western anthropological, archaeological ways of understanding the site and the knowledge with modern Indigenous ways of knowing and understanding the site and understanding the site as it exists in the, you know, in the 21st century. So I don't know if there is a local population of descendants of the Mayan people in the area. Obviously, I don't know, but I think that would be a really, really wonderful opportunity to blend those experiences and to blend those two ways of knowing and understanding and of highlighting those Indigenous voices. Are there any plans for that?
Absolutely. You're right in line with our thinking on that. Another link, I posted the link to the National Geographic documentary on the site, and I'll post another one to a TEDx talk that Dr. Bay gave back in 2014. And it really outlines the kind of community-centric mission that the site has, so that we're not going in and paving everything down for tourists and things. It's how can the biocultural reserve, how can the archaeological site, how can we give back to the community? How can we enhance their traditions and their heritage? And that's certainly something we want to do, Rachel. It's top of our mind, for sure. That's one of the exciting things about the library, is that it provides that space. One thing that Dr. Bay points out in his TEDx talk is that a lot of locals are not fully aware of their heritage or their history. And so as we are discovering these things, as we are collecting these resources, you know, how can we involve them in the story and in the storytelling? And to me, that's another thing that's really appealing about the digital aspect of this, is making it more available and accessible and putting it in the proper context. And I think that's where Andrea and Chris's expertise really shines. And so I'll put that link to that TEDx talk. It's just like 18 minutes. I still listen to it just for additional inspiration some days, because he talks of kind of redefining success. What does it mean to be successful, specifically in archaeology, and how through these years that they've been digging down there, how they're really paving that new path.
I had a question that I wanted to ask. You mentioned you volunteered. How does this work with your day job? I know it's like your day job's a librarian job and then your night job's a librarian, you know, librarian by day, librarian by night. But how much time do you dedicate to this outside of your normal job? And since all of you are from University of Pennsylvania, is your library thinking about getting involved at all now that all three of you are looking at it? You know, how does that all work?
I'll start answering that, and then Andrea and Chris, feel free to chime in. My personal experience, and I'm not saying this just because she's now on here, my boss has logged in, but I've been fortunate that my direct supervisor has been supportive of this project since I first agreed to come on with Bay. And they've been supportive in the way that they allow me time, such as we're doing right now today. This is during my work day, and I'm able to take it off and talk to you today. When I went down to organize and dedicate the library in July, I was not required to take PTO. It was a library endeavor, a professional and development endeavor. And so the libraries were very supportive in that way. Yeah, she put something in the chat. Barbara Kavanaugh is my boss. And we are currently kind of in talks with, I guess, library administration of kind of what a more formal support would look like. But we are all volunteers at this point. And I would say, if I may, the added crux of this is that Andrea and Chris are bargaining unit staff. And so there's always a little delicate dance with, at least on my end, I want to be aware and very thoughtful of their time. But Andrea and Chris, do y'all have anything? How do you balance things?
I love to do this stuff. So, you know, it's not a question. I don't consciously look for the time. I just, I do it. I run down to the copy stand and I take care of what's going on there. And I sort of, at this point, with this cutting edge tech stuff, it's sort of hard to really nail down what a person's responsibility is, because that's going to change. Their skills are going to change. And one of the best things is that, there are, in any organization, there's levels of administration and knowledge and communication, but the people that we work closely with understand and trust that the things that we're doing are, this is what we're doing. We're helping a library. It's, if I need to go spend an hour working on something about that, then I'm going to do that. And I'm sort of doing it in a larger sense also. The videos that I showed weren't, made for Casual Click. They were made for something else, but this is all part of the direction we're going. So I'm sort of, with tech, you're just kind of going forwards. So there's no real answer other than just trusting that we're all being grown-ups, behaving responsibly.
Well, I don't know if Andrea had a response as well.
I think she would probably back up what I was saying.
Yeah. So I want to give a chance to anybody who has last questions that really want to give. I do also want to direct people to the feedback form. You can tell us how you felt about this presentation, how great it was and everything. Oh, Andrea, you're back.
Hi, sorry.
No worries.
Internet issues. So I think we were just, are we still on the pull off sort of having two jobs? Is that what we're still talking about? So I sort of take the approach of, finding in the break times of the day, you know, so we usually will meet during lunch and talk up, you know, our different ideas. And then like, you know, we have a wonderful boss that allows us to have sort of like a flex schedule. So like right now I'm on my time and I just, you know, work a little later another day, or, you know, it's so, you know, it's not a specifically part of my job, but we sort of find ways to make it happen.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for being able to also pop back in after the internet wanted to fight that. So again, I want to thank our presenters, Hannah, Chris, and Andrea, for giving us this really detailed explanation about setting up the library in the Yucatan. I want to thank ACRL for helping support this presentation, as well as the rest of the committee members, for the professional development committee, for DSS. I want to thank you all for taking your time for joining us here. With that, thank you all, and we will see you later.